Salakaya Chaksurun Miritam Yanatashmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manovistam Shtapitam Yanabhutare Swayam Rupa Karamyam Darati Swaparandikam Sri Bandeham Sri Guru Siyata Parakamanam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Sha Sri Rupam Sagadatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Stam Sajevam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Sta Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dino Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanti Namostate Jayatam Shurito Pango Mama Manir Matirgati Matsavasha Paramboja Radha Namada Namohanam Shriman Rasa Rasarambi Vamsi Pada Karsan Venushanupake Gopinata Sri Saram Divyad Vindarani Kabadvimada Srimad Ratnagara Shimashanashto Shri Sri Radha Shilo Govindade Prasalavihi Sevimanashmarami Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmanya Taya Cha Jigadi Taya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha Mangalam Bhagavan Vishnu Mangalam Gurudadija Mangalam Panidikaksho Mangalaya Tano Hari Om Narayanaya Vidmahi Vasadevaya Dhimahi Tano Vishnu Prachodhyate Om Mahadevi Chavidmahi Vishnu Padnicha Dhimahi Tano Lakshmi Prachodhyate Mahalakshmi Namastabhyam Namastabhyam Sarasari Hari Pre Namastabhyam Namastabhyam Radhire Tapti Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwavanusate Devi Pranamani Hari Priye Om Maganati Miranda Sangana Sarakya Chaksurun Miritam Yana Tashmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Yana Bhutare Swayam Rupa Karamayam Darati Swaparantiham Vandeham Sri Guru Siyata Parakamanam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Sha Sri Rupam Sagaritam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Stam Sadevam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shivishakan Vitam Sha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutare Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamani Stay Sarasati Deva Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesa Sunivadi Praskata Desana Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Siddhi Gaur Bhaktivindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Well, welcome. Motivational Monday. Prince Habib from Punjab or Pakistan, and Brent Spencer also on Facebook Live. We had a hiatus again, in spite of my best intentions last week, because of Janmashtami celebration Sunday in Spanish Fork, and then Monday going till 1 o'clock in the evening. Made it a little hard. We did have Motivational Monday last week, but we skipped Transcendental Tuesday and Wisdom Wednesday in order to recover from the Gala Janmashtami celebrations. We had a record crowd, I believe, in Salt Lake City, mainly by virtue of the fact that the Nepali community turned out in vast numbers. I was giving tika and giving blessings, and 25% of all the people that came before me were Nepalis. So we're glad to have reached that landmark and milestone, and hopefully encourage the Nepali community to combine with us for our big programs, the next of which will be Diwali on Saturday, November 2nd. So picking up where we left off, I don't honestly know where we left off. Last Monday, we talked about Krishna's birthday, so we're really going back to the previous Wednesday. Let's just pitch in here and talk about the process by which we develop spontaneous love of God. That may seem contradictory. Well, if it's spontaneous, and make up your mind, is it spontaneous or is there a process? Well, there's a process by which you come to the level of spontaneous love of God. Krishna sent Uddhava to Vrindavan. Krishna had left Vrindavan to go and kill Kamsa in Mathura. He told the gopis, I'm just going into the big city, Mathura, for a few days to kill Kamsa and make things safe, because he'd been sending demons and wizards and all kinds of nasty people into Vrindavan and had created several disturbances there. So if you want to, just like now up in Salt Lake City, the landscaping has been neglected up there. And so these Chinese elms have gotten 4 or 5 feet high. If they're small, they're 12 to 18 inches, you can easily pull them out. But when you neglect to do that, you walk past them every day. Don't take 2 seconds to pull them up. Then you have to you have to suffer the consequences of your lethargy, your state of unconsciousness. Now, when they get 3 or 4 feet high, then it's very, very difficult to get rid of them. By Babish spending a lot of time and energy and expense to figure out how to now uproot them. But the point is, if you attack them by the root, then you'll never have reoccurring problems. If you just cut them off, if you cut the branches off, or even you cut the trunk, they're going to reappear again in a few weeks' time. You have to strike at the root. And so there had been a history in Vrindavan since the transfer of Krishna from the prison house of Kamsa to the bed of Yashoda. Kamsa had been told that his death, the one who would cause his death, the eighth son of Devaki, had been transferred to Vrindavan. And so he sent Putana, he sent Agasura, he sent Trinavarta, Pralambasura, Bakasura, all these demons to kill Krishna, and they created disturbances. Krishna figured that's those repeated disturbances, those incursions by malevolent beings would not stop unless he killed Kamsa. Kamsa was the root, the one who caused all of them, who sent them all. So he told the gopis and the senior and junior cowherd girls and boys, I'll just go into Mathura, I'll uproot this rascal, and then I'll come right back. Well, he never came back because after Kamsa had been married. Two of Kamsa's wives were the daughters of Jarasandha, who was also a great demon. Kamsa and Jarasandha were very close. And so Jarasandha sought revenge, and he began to marshal huge armies. In fact, he was to attack Mathura city no less than 17 times, each time with an army of 1 million soldiers. But Krishna didn't think it would be safe to go back to Vrindavan, because then Jarasandha, instead of targeting the big city Mathura, would target the little village Vrindavan, and that Vrindavan could not repel an invasion, what to speak of 17 invasions of an army, each one of which comprised 1 million men. So Krishna spent more time in Mathura fighting Jarasandha than Kalyavana, and so on and so forth. And then he eventually he'd made so many enemies, because after all, why did he come? The world was overburdened by the military forces of demoniac kings. So Krishna comes to destroy the miscreants and to protect the devotees. So if he just destroys 1 or 2 miscreants and then goes back to the devotees, it's going to put into great danger the transcendental residency of the devotees. And so he has to draw them away, you might say. He has to lure them away, lure the demons away. Just like a mother bird tries to lure the predator away from where her eggs are or where her babies are. So Krishna's luring everybody away from Vrindavan. Everything he does is to benefit Vrindavan. But at the same time, it's bittersweet because in doing so, he never actually came back to Vrindavan. So he sent Uddhava to study the mode of worship of the gopis. And remember, Krishna is now from Mathura, which had been attacked by Jarasandha and Kalyavan. He thought it would be even better to go and build his own city in the sea off the coast of Dwarka. Krishna is a big king in Dwarka. Uddhava is his prime minister, or his best friend. And he has all of the queens of Dwarka surrounding him in a mood of awe and reverence, and a lifestyle which is very lavish, very opulent. He's always surrounded by pure devotees. But this Dwarka Krishna is not the same Krishna as Krishna in Vrindavan. The lifestyle of Dwarka is not the same lifestyle as Vrindavan. The level of devotion of the inhabitants of Dwarka is not on the same high level as the level of devotion of the inhabitants of the simple village of Vrindavan. if you're a devotee of Krishna in Dwarka, you get a lot of perks. There's a lot that comes with that. Nice bed, nice palace, nice food. Krishna rewards the devotees of Dwarka with unlimited opulence. You go to Vrindavan, it's just dust and cows, cow pies, adobe houses. Um, Compared to Dwarka, Vrindavan looks to the untrained eye shabby, rustic, backwards, primitive. You have to still in Vrindavan, you still have to go to get water with a bucket. You still have to pump it from a well. They churn their own butter. They get milk. They milk by hand. Then they spend hours singing and churning to get butter and cheese and yogurt. I mean, look what we've done in our modern age. We don't grow our own food. We don't produce our own clothes. We don't do anything for ourselves. We just tap away at our computers all day long. We take all that stuff for granted. We wouldn't want to make our own clothes. We wouldn't want to grow our own food. We, in our arrogance, in our alienation from our environment, we think that's beneath us. We think that would be a waste of our time. So there must be some tinge of that condensation, not condensation. What is it? Con, con. What's the word there? I'm reaching out here. I'm having a mental senior. I'm having a senior moment. Not condensate, condescension, not condensation, condescension. So that the inhabitants of Dwarka hear Krishna calling out in his sleep, Radha, Lalita, Vishaka, Yashoda, Nanda Baba. They're thinking, what is this all about? Here he's sleeping in a bed in a palace with silken sheets and a most beautiful, sophisticated queen by his side who dotes on him at every moment. He's got children here, grandchildren on the way. Why is he why isn't he glad that he's no longer in that dusty old primitive throwback coward village? Why is he calling out the names of these simple cowherd men and women in his sleep? Divyat Brinda and Nikalpadrumada Srimad Radhakarashimi. Bhai Bobby didn't spell it right either. Consation. Bhai Bobby spelled it in Facebook. Divyat Brinda and Nikalpadrumada Srimad Radhakarashimi Radhishruga Prasadavi Seviranishmi. How does one get to that level of the gopis? As Uddhava studied the gopis in Vrindavan, being sent as a representative of Krishna, he was progressively more and more amazed at how unconditional the love of the gopis was. They didn't get any perks for worshiping Krishna. In fact, it seemed like everything went against them. It seemed like everything was, because of their association for Krishna, they weren't able to get ahead of the world. They were never able to leave that village. That village contained so many reminiscences, so many recollections. It triggered so many remembrance of Krishna. They couldn't even think of leaving Vrindavan for a minute. So they were never able to better their situation. They were never able to get an IT degree, go to the city and earn a six-figure salary. They were condemned to live their whole lives churning milk, milking cows, fetching water from the river. You would think that because of their devotion for Krishna, that kept them back from enjoying a luxurious life of sense gratification, and that's not untrue. But the thing is, the greatest misery, the greatest depression in Krishna consciousness is millions of times more ecstatic than the highest material pleasure. That's what you're going to miss when you look at all this superficially. Vrindavan is far more opulent than Dwarka. The very molecules, the very atoms of Vrindavan are surcharged with the most intense, concentrated membrane of Krishna Prem, unconditional love of Krishna. Vrindavan is composed, Chintamani, Pakara Sadmashu Kabhavi, it's composed of Krishna Prem. Every mote of dust, every pebble, every leaf on every tree, every insignificant bird or sparrow or peacock feather lying on the ground is composed, permeated with Krishna Prem, a level of devotion which doesn't exist in Dwarka, where Krishna is worshipped basically in opulence. Krishna is essentially Vishnu. He's essentially worshipped with awe and reverence and protocol in Dwarka, and there's none of that in Vrindavan. And because of that informality, Vrindavan, at the end of the day, is far more opulent than Dwarka. Aishwarya Shamagate Jnana Sabakrita. Krishna says, worship of me, which is tinged with awe and reverence and opulence, does not please me as much as the chastising words of the gopis. The sweet words of the queens of Dwarka to Krishna in awe and reverence and devotion do not please Krishna's ears as much as the recriminations, the accusations. The gopis, apparently having been deserted by Krishna, left behind literally in the dust of Vrindavan, are saying, Krishna, you used us, you took us, you spoiled us, you ruined our chastity, you lured us into the forest in the middle of the night. We left our families, we left our parents, we left our children even. Some of them who couldn't exit their houses left their bodies. Krishna, you took everything from us and then you left us. Those words of accusation, which the gopis uttered in separation from Krishna, not being able to forget Krishna for a moment. You'd think that if someone used you and then threw you away, discarded you, you'd forget him. You'd do everything you could to forget him. But the gopis could not forget Krishna for a moment. And those accusatory words, those bad words, those bad names they called Krishna, landed on Krishna's ears more pleasingly than the reverential hymns and sweet words that the queens of Dwarka spoke to him. Therefore, Krishna, and because the gopis were unconditionally attached to Krishna, gave up all hopes of economic development, all hopes of being faithful to their husbands and their children's. They gave up all propriety. They risked being exiled and defamed as loose women because of their attachment to Krishna. It did them no good. By all of the cultural standards, their attachment to Krishna did not do them any good. But there was one good there, and that is that Krishna could not forget their devotion, not even for a moment. As they could not forget Krishna, Krishna could not forget them. Aham bhakta padara yashatantu sarabhirda bhaktir bhadam sadhavodiyamanam sadarmiyam madantu taranyamahavi. Krishna could not forget the gopis, just as the gopis could not forget Krishna in a moment. How do we talk about the process by which to become spontaneous? It doesn't appear like the gopis underwent any process. They just appeared in a rural village and they had this instinctual, intrinsic attraction for Krishna, to the point they didn't even compute that Krishna was God. He was just their Krishna, Vrindavan Krishna, Yashoda's Krishna, Nanda's Krishna. So how do we, when Uddhava studied the gopis, what were his conclusions? What do we do to get from conditioned love to unconditional love of the gopis? And there is a process for that. There is a process. It's called Sambandha Abhideya Prayojana. The example is given, we've several times explained this in the past, that how does a young girl come to the point of loving unconditionally and wholeheartedly a young boy, and vice versa. As you know, and traditionally, neither the marriages were arranged. The boy and girl would not have met each other. That's no longer true in the modern age. But in the traditional age, the boy and girl would not have met each other until a wedding day. The wedding would have taken place in the home of the girl. She'd lived her whole life, a cloistered life. Traditionally, the young girls, well, at least once they got to be 10, 11, 12, they wouldn't go out in public. They'd be taken here and there in a palanquin. They would only know their brothers and they would know their fathers. They wouldn't know boys. They wouldn't be boy crazy. So this boy would be the first boy they met outside of their family, and this is their husband. So there's no question of intimacy. It's like probably half scared to death, except for the fact that the parents would have taken greatest care to match them perfectly. So the girl would go from her paternal home, where she'd spent her whole life up to date, to the husband's home. To ease that transition, she would take some of her best girlfriends with her. The father would give a dowry, so she would come with some oomph. And that dowry was not automatically her husband's. That dowry was hers to be spent at her discretion. That would give her a measure of independence and a say in the household's expenditures. But in any case, there's no question of intimacy. It's not like from the girl's house they go on a honeymoon. I mean, the whole idea of honeymoon would be scandalous in the minds of such a traditionally raised boy and girl. Like, are you kidding? The honeymoon would come 1 year later, 2 years later. But what comes first is formality, process, protocol. The girl would have been trained, cooking, cleaning. The boy would be trained, earning, protecting. They would have been trained, so they kick in. Their training would kick in. They find the first night they find themselves alone at the kitchen table, or maybe the second night or third night. There's no question of physical intimacy. That's not going to come for quite some time. There's no question of spontaneity. Everything is what their training has dictated. They've practiced this at their respective homes. They've rehearsed for this day. So they know their roles and they go about their roles. The husband is a protector, the wife is the supporter, the husband is the friend, so on and so forth. And they act out their parts. They're just like actors on a dramatic stage with a script and a role to play. It's only natural in the sense that independently and separately they've practiced and rehearsed, being coached by their family members. But this is the real thing. This is live on stage, opening day, debut. And there may not be an audience, but it's still stilted, it's formal. There's protocol, there's etiquette, there's stiffness. But that eases over time. As they go about their duties, they watch each other closely. They note how expert they are, what potential they have. They begin to converse and find out more about the intimate details of each other. They begin to know each other. The formality, the stiffness gradually softens little by little by little by little. One day they actually brush shoulders as they're passing. It's like, and over the course of time, what happens is they become comfortable with each other. And that formality, that awkwardness is a thing of the past. And eventually they have physical intimacy. And it's the natural, sequential result of having followed the process. You know, people nowadays, they talk about falling in love, love at first sight. They get married being impelled by lust and infatuation, and 2 years later, they get a nasty divorce and they hate each other. Those who stood before the altar and declared undying love for each other in sickness and health, richness and poor, honor and dishonor, 2 years later, 1 year later, they hate each other more than any other person in the world. So they start with what they call love and they end with hate. It's actually better to start with unfamiliarity, trepidation, hesitation, awkwardness, stiffness. It's better to be square, be there and be square, and follow the process, the result of which is that everything relax and loosen. And the awkwardness, the stiffness, the protocol will have run its day and slough off just like old skin naturally sloughs off of certain types of mammals. After formality comes friendship. They become each other's best friends. And that occurs not due to some physical attraction or temporary infatuation, because it occurs because each one does their duty. And as each one manifests character and follows the vows that they made at the wedding, they earn the respect of the spouse. There's respect that every time that one of them overcomes lethargy or a disinclination to get up earlier to take or to go to work or to clean the house. Every time anyone overcomes a disinclination or chooses activity in favor of passivity, it benefits the other, it earns the respect of the other. The result of which is that after some time, they become best friends. And then there become more and more exchanges of intimacy, touching. And then finally, after some time, and not on the wedding night, thank you very much, they have sexual intercourse. And there's a baby, and the baby is the result of having followed the process. Now, when the parents come home from the hospital with the baby, they have no training. They don't know anything about being parents. They know a lot about each other. The fruit of love has blossomed and appeared. But in terms of training or preparedness or qualifications to take care of a newborn 8-ounce baby, it's like they're terrified. What if I drop him? Do you want to hold him? Well, okay. Uh, and same thing, from being scared to death, taking this new life home, gradually become more and more confident through practice, through process. Everything that's worthwhile in life, intimacy, love, uh, uh, reciprocity, it's all achieved through overcoming. It's all achieved through exercise of character. None of it comes to us unbidden, spontaneously. None of these feelings drop into your lap. They all have to be identified, pursued, and gained through an overcoming of the lower self by the higher self. Just like many people, you know, you see people in middle age, fulfilled. They have their own business or they have a job that they've been working at for some time. They feel comfortable with it. They're good at it. If they're a salesman, or if they're an accountant, or if they're a doctor, even if you're a driver, you're a mother, you're a teacher, you've been doing it long enough that you're very, very good at it and you're very comfortable at it. But how reverse, go back in time, and how did all of that start? How did you get to that point of more or less spontaneously liking and instinctually doing your work, following your passion, uh, spontaneously, without pre-thinking everything, without feeling formal? You went to college. most of the successful people in the business world, in the entrepreneurial world, in the education world, went to college. And college was a formal program of classes, curriculum, homework, tests, deadlines. It was the furthest thing from spontaneity that you could possibly ever imagine. You had not, in all likelihood, identified what would be your future vocation, what would be your future passion. You're taking a lot of courses that absolutely do not push your buttons. They bore you out of the mind. You couldn't care less about it. You couldn't wait to get finished with that course. You're taking it only because it's required, not because you liked it. But gradually, after trial and error, we come to those courses that we enjoy, those practices that we feel there's a potential there to fulfill us, to be engaged in more naturally, spontaneously. We look for the flow in our life. We try to identify what are our strong points, what gets us, what gets our heart pumping, what excites us, what rings our bells. And gradually we sift through, we accept and reject until we come to that vocation, that career choice, which has the most potential for fulfillment. Hopefully we do that. We don't just consider the money, the salary. We don't prostitute ourselves just for a wage, but we look to find kamani avada mafadashu. Krishna says, you're not entitled to the fruits of work. You shouldn't choose based on the salary, the monetary recompense. You should choose based on what you're good at, what thrills you, what rings your bell. So fast forward to middle age, 30, 40, 50, and man is fulfilled. He flows, he's graceful, he has a natural sort of poise about him because he's right in the middle of what he was meant to do. But it all started with formality, with a curriculum, with having to be at a certain time, at a certain place, having done your homework, been prepared to respond to pop quizzes, to answer questions, to write essays, to do all of the drudgery work, the heavy duty work. That is rewarded by spontaneity. Another example, playing a musical instrument like the harmonium, for instance. We start, what's the first thing we learn? Sa, re, ga, ma, pa, di, na, sa, da. Sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa. Sa, ni, da, pa, ma, ga, re, sa. Sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa. Sa, ni, da, pa, ma, ga, re, sa. And we do that 1,000 times. We do that 10,000 times. And then we go, sa re ga ma pa da ni sa ni da pa ma ga re sa. The more we do it, the less we think about it. It becomes embedded in our unconsciousness. And then we start to put all those notes together and we learn a tune, a rhythm. Then that tune, we have to ingrain it. We have to embed it. It has to go from a conscious effort where we're thinking about each note one after the other till the point we're anticipating. We see the whole sequence of keynotes and finger placement before us. And from being able to visualize the whole piece in advance and feel consequently comfortable, we come to the point where we don't even think about it anymore. We don't even think about it anymore. Yesterday, I was giving a talk, and the talk had been all planned out. But I came to the last story, which is the story of Prahlad and Nrsimhadev. And I had my notes. I had the things to say to make the point that I was making, which is that God is always with you, more especially in adversity. You need to get the habit of not asking God to get you out of troubles, but rather to come into those troubles with you. The best example is Prahlad Maharaj. He never asked the Lord to deliver him from being thrown over a cliff. He never asked the Lord to deliver him from being bitten by poisonous serpents. He never asked the Lord to deliver him from being poisoned. But he chanted the Hare Krishna mantra faithfully with the faith that the Lord would deliver him, would take him through those adversities. And in the course of his tolerating those adversities, keeping a good attitude, always trusting the Lord and chanting the names of the Lord constantly, Prahlad had the conviction that all of this would do good to him, that the Lord had a plan in the middle of the adversity, how to bring about changes in Prahlad to bring him up to a higher level. So anyway, I had all these notes arranged. But at one point, because I've been rehearsing this rap song about Prahlad, I just put all my notes aside and just went. In ancient lore, we are told the story of a 5-year-old boy named Prahlad, whose faith in Krishna was pure and bold. Ignited within the womb, his love shone like the moon. Krishna's chants filled his soul while his father's rage viciously unfolded. His father, Hiranyakashipu, a demon king, demanded worship and decreed that everyone his praises sing, but Prahlad in his heart yearned to be free. His father used threats and torments to break his son, his spirit to destroy. Though poison trampled, thrown in the ocean, Prahlad's devotion was never broken. Through every trial, Prahlad held fast. The Lord protected him as he passed every test. Even Holika, the demoness of fire herself, was burned on a flaming pyre. To kill the demon, the Lord emerged from a pillar with a mighty roar. Narashinga, half man, half lion, tore the demon apart. Prahlad pleaded in the string with a tear in his eye, Lord, please hear my cry. Though my father was blinded by pride, consumed by hatred, please break into its darkness and let mercy preside. Prahlad's devotion conquered all. The Lord made an exception out of his father, and out of his broken body offered redemption for the soul. May the story of Prahlad be forever told. His faith was untamed. Despite a demon king's rage, devotion in his armor, come what may. Krishna's names never left his lips. May the fame of those who proclaim the glories of the Lord live forevermore. So I don't have to think about that. That's been rehearsed, recited so many times that it just comes through spontaneously. And when I do this, the audience is like, is this rhyming? Is this a song? Is this a rap? Oh, this is cool. Oh, wow. And they get dialed in. They get dialed in. So that spontaneity comes as a result of practice. Anything that you want to achieve. You want to be good at public speaking, practice. You want to be good at playing a musical instrument, practice. You want to be good at sports, these quarterbacks like Tom Brady, and practice. You have any idea off the field, how many times they throw the ball? It's like tens of thousands of times. You wonder why their arms don't literally drop off. How the human body, what a miracle it is that, I mean, even if you had the best machine, the best robotic with oil and grease and all the joints and everything, how many thousands of times can it repeat the same motion and not fall off, not be in need of replacement or repair? Practice, they say practice makes perfect. I don't know. I don't know if there is a point at which you can say perfection has been achieved. I don't have to practice anymore. I don't think there is such an animal. But practice makes you better. Even we pray repeatedly in our devotional line, let me follow in the footsteps of the previous acharyas, Rupa Raghunatha Pade. Let me keep up. Let me keep the pace of those great souls who are out in front of me. Let me never overcome them. That's not even thinkable. That's not possible. What to speak of overcoming them and passing them? That's not only not possible, that is offensive. That is offensive. That will disqualify you from any further progress. But what devotees pray is, let me not fall back. Let me keep pace with them so that I go and we see the dust of their lotus feet up ahead. And that goes on even in the spiritual world. So I don't think there's any such point at which one says, I'm perfect, I don't have to practice anymore. That's not perfection. That's the point at which the trapdoor open and you're going to fall back down. You're going to relapse. When you start thinking in that prideful way, you've stopped making progress. You've gotten stuck. And if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. So I don't know if there's any time at which we achieve perfection, but practice makes better. I forget the name of that famous cellist. What was the name of that famous cellist? He's universally acknowledged as the best cellist of all time. And he practiced 5 hours a day when he was 75 years old. He was asked, you've achieved everything that's possible to achieve, and then 3 times. There will not likely to be any cellist at any time in the future that had your level of virtuosity. Why are you practicing 5 hours a day? He said, I think I'm getting better. I think those who are truly brilliant, who are truly accomplished in their field, whether it be music or sports or business, they're always moving forward. They never stop. The best things are always ahead. The future is brighter than the past. They're trusting God to do his best works always in the future. So devotional service, although the goal is spontaneity, there's nothing more natural than serving Krishna. We have been living an unnatural, artificial life for lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. We've misidentified with bodies in the reptilian species, in the aquatic species, in the aviary species, in the mammalian species, in the demigod species. We've had it wrong for a long, long time. We've been out of sync, out of line with the Lord. We've developed bad habits, bad patterns of thinking. So to get us back to the natural, wholesome, spontaneous, harmonious flow of devotional service to the Lord, we have to take some remedial measures. We have to check into the hospital. We have to submit to the prescriptions of the doctor who knows how to cure us. Those of us who are blind, we need to follow those who are sighted back to home, back to Godhead, back to that original, blissful position of freedom where we flow. We flow like the Ganges flows without thought, without premeditation, without computation. The Ganges simply flows to the sea. So in all of this, getting up early when you don't feel like it, chanting your rounds when you don't feel like it, offering your food when you don't feel like it, giving a class when you don't feel like it, going on Harinam when you don't feel like, in all of that, the goal is to be like the gopis in all circumstances. Lord, whether you restrain me by hiding your face or pain me in your embrace, you are my Lord unconditionally, no matter what the difficulty, decline or gain, rain or shine. I am yours and you are mine. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Brent by Bobby. Sahabilasi, I don't know where you're listening from. Prince Habib from Pakistan, Punjab, Pakistan, that part of Pakistan, which might have been in the Punjab. And then Brent. I have to remember to send that recommendation letter today. His initiation is scheduled for end of September in Mountain View by Visheshika Prabhuji. Here's a creative offering of Brent, one of several today. It's hard to get rid of an elm if you don't pull it by the root. It's hard to hear Krishna's flute if you're enamored by the tree's fruit. A tree can become a weed, just as work can lead us to greed. But a tree in its right place reminds us of Krishna's grace. And here's another one underneath that one. The more you prepare, the less you have to think. When you practice connecting with Krishna every day, you'll always be in sync. Very nice, short and sweet. The more you prepare, the less you have to think. When you practice connecting with Krishna every day, you'll always be in sync. Very nice. Thank you for listening in. Thank you for sharing some of your thoughts in response to our talk. Enjoy your Labor Day weekend by chanting, remembering, recalling, working towards spontaneous love of Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.